No, if you look at Philadelphia, if you look at Buffalo, you look at a lot of places where people are not coming and going, what you have is stagnation. When you get that form of stagnation, in its most serious form, you have it today in the cities of Japan, you have it today in Northern Europe, where there is literally an absence of working people. There is nobody to come in and support the labor force. Let me skip over this just for a second. 47% of all New Yorkers, 47% of the labor force, of all resident workers are foreign born. 47%. And look at this by industry. Take a look at education, health, and social services, a major industry in New York employing over 900,000 people, accommodation, food, and other services. Look at the percentage foreign born across the board. Immigrants are vital to our economy. We cannot survive without them. If you remove this, because most immigrants are in the young working ages, if you remove this component, then you get stagnation. You get a situation like you have today in some of the countries that do not have, are not welcoming immigrants. Many Japanese cities, I'm sure you've read these stories, are coming up with all kinds of short-term solutions, including taking in refuse from other parts of the country in an effort to raise revenue to support an aging population and essentially a city or a town that cannot exist on its own any longer because the working population is left. They're not attracting any new people. This will happen to whole countries in northern Europe. It's happening in parts of Germany where the young people leave, they are not replaced because there's no dynamism and no reason to attract people. One of the greatest things we have in New York is we attract a lot of young people. Those young people come in and they produce a dynamism, they produce an injection of vitality into our workforce that keeps us vital and sustains us. I ask you, I challenge you to go to some of the other cities in this country and you will see very quickly what is happening. And the truth is, it's also happening in some of our suburban counties. Nassau County is not particularly welcoming to development, and there are some parts of Nassau County that certainly welcome immigrants, but by and large, restrictions on growth, anti-growth policies have produced different types of zoning resolutions, different types of enforcement that have intimidated immigrants. Nassau is now losing population. Why? Because the domestic flows are still negative, the immigrant flows aren't making up for it. So do you know how we in New York City know that that this is going on? Because our out commuting to Westchester, not as bad off as Nassau. So Nassau is increasing every year. Our labor force in New York City is now supporting retail and other industries in our inner ring suburbs because of anti-growth policies. So immigrants are a vital part of the workforce, and that is again another overlay that I can offer you. Let me just tell you that we're projecting continued growth. So people will say to me now, what are you talking about? The economy's in a recession. You know, this has been the worst since the 1930s. How could you say this? Well, I can give you the quick of it. Make a long story short. Let's go back to other traumas in the city's history. The 1970s, something that several of your faculty know a lot about. If you go back to the 1970s, you see the city was on the verge of bankruptcy. The city was in serious trouble. Did you know in the 1970s that New York City got 750,000 immigrants? In the 1970s when the city was collapsing. Jonathan Mahler's book, The Bronx is Burning, which is really much about Bushwick as it is about the Bronx, is a must read for those of you interested in what happened to New York City in the 1970s. If you go and you look at the conditions here, the city was deteriorating. 750,000 immigrants. We had 2 million people who left the city, okay? The city lost upwards of 10% of its population in that period, okay? We have since gained it back. What's my point? Very simple. Immigrants come here because we have opportunities, and it's always a relative process. Never ask, how could people come here? Always ask, how could people come here relative to where they came from? It's always a relative thing. If you come here and you're being harassed by governmental authorities, a victim of oppression, dangerous situations where you fear for your day-to-day existence, and you come here and the economy's in a recession, it puts things in a bit of a different perspective, to say the least. So it's always relative. Now, the other trauma, of course, 9/11. What happened? Dislocation in Manhattan. Okay, no question, out-migration that occurred. It was temporary. We made it all back within a few years. Why? Because people want to live in Manhattan. Many people saw it as an opportunity to go and actually get an apartment in Manhattan. We recovered from that. What's different about now? Those two situations I just described to you were unique to New York. Okay, the country suffered, but we got hit directly in 9/11, right? This recession, there are places that are much worse off than New York right now. In fact, several of those places are destinations for our out-migrants. Florida, Arizona, Nevada, and California, the four top foreclosure states in terms of percentage of housing that's in foreclosure. They got hit really badly. Relatively speaking, our unemployment rate, while it's bad and certainly not good, is nowhere near what it is in Michigan and some other places. We are now suffering along with the rest of the country in a direct way. So our conclusion is, over the long haul, where are people going to go? Where do you go to get out of this? The answer is there is no place. So people will make a relative judgment and will stay here by and large. Maybe the pace of coming and going will slow, but New York, over the long haul, will sustain its growth. The big news, if any of you are contemplating helping the elderly, person 65 and over, you should consider that occupation, because we're projecting a more than 400,000 increase in the population 65 and over. By 2035, we will have many more, I'm sorry, I don't know what to say, older people, is that okay? Many more persons 65 and over in the city of New York. And as the population grows, the percent and number 65 and over will also grow. All right, I'm going to stop here. I think that's about time. I want you to take note of our website. We have a lot of good stuff on our website, including current data about New York City. I thank you very much for listening. I hope you have some really good questions.
Okay, for those of you who have come in a little later, why don't you move, get off the stairs and come and get a seat. There's still some left in the front. Okay. The reason why Dr. Salvo was looking at his watch is not his fault, it was my fault, in terms of time allotment. Because we have another distinguished speaker who's a professor at Wagner College, and he's a chair of the Department of Government and Politics at Wagner. But it's interesting also, I was unaware of this, Dr. Salvo and Dr. Hugh, that if you compare the 1970 to 2006 figures of Dr. Salvo's report and slide projection, PowerPoints, you will find that in 1970, the largest population of foreign-borns in New York were from Italy, then from Poland, and from the USSR. China was not even listed among the top places of birth for the foreign-born. In 2006, the top places of birth for the foreign-born are the Dominican Republic, China, and the former Soviet Union.